And good morning. We have an NBC News special report. We have breaking news coming from the U.S.
This critical message is being delivered by the emergency alert system. This is not a test. We interrupt regular scheduled programming to notify you of an imminent threat to national security and public safety.
I think we can all agree that right now is a very, very crucial time in American history. There's a lot of things going on right now. We're living in this time of info wars where we don't really know what's true and what's false. The media is lying to us, and there's just a lot of stuff going on. There's been a lot of civil unrest the past couple of years with communities having rioting, looting, basically the police becoming useless. There's wars breaking out globally. Ukraine, Russia, Israel at the Gaza Strip. You got Pakistan and India now. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now. And in my opinion, I think that you should try to at least be prepared for something to happen to you just in case you ever find yourself in one of these situations, because these situations of civil unrest and violent outbreak and essentially the collapse of society are more probable now than ever, in my opinion. People are starting to wake up to all the lies. People are starting to, realize that what they're being told is not true. People are starting to resent one another. We're being divided by race, political affiliation, religion, things like that, more now than ever. And I think the internet has a lot to do with that. However, today I'm going to utilize the internet to ensure that you guys are prepared. All right. And I'm not even as prepared as I need to be. But today, guys, I want to talk about gear. And at least being a little bit more prepared than you are now if you don't have any gear at home already. So today, guys, we're going to be going over my budget shit hits the fan loadout. My gear setup. As you guys can see, I've got all my gear on out here, and I'm just going to kind of go through it, go through why I pick each individual item and kind of why I put these things in my loadout. Now, this video is going to be geared more to like what you carry on your plate carrier and on your battle belt and your rifle and things like that. For like a shit hits the fan situation, if there was like violence to outbreak in your community, you have to defend your home from invaders out in the street, or you may have to go scavenge for food because there's been a collapse of society just overall because of civil unrest, and you may have to go scavenge for food, medicine, or something like that. That's really what this video is going to be geared towards. What do you put on your quote-unquote combat loadout? We could talk about like extended period of times in a shit hits the fan situation, a time where you may have to, survive in the wilderness and go camp and things like that. And that's really where we would get to where what I carry in my battle pack. But today, I really just want to focus on, what you have on your immediate carrier in a situation where violence is coming to your home, or you have to go out in the city to fetch goods and you may have to defend your life, right? You want to travel as light as possible and take the minimal amount of things with you as possible. That way you can leave everything that would be beneficial to your family in the long term at home. It's almost like Tarkov. You don't want to take everything in your inventory out to deploy, because if you end up losing it out there, then you lose everything, right? So that's kind of the way that I'm looking at this and looking at this video. So we're really just going to break down what's on my rifle, what's on my kit, what's in my bag here, what's on my helmet, and just kind of break down the each individual scenario of why I would use that. And then we're also going to do some shooting and some training out here with the gear on, and just talk about training with your gear and being prepared for the absolute worst situation. We're just going to start out with my rifle here and kind of how I have my rifle set up. Now, I did do a video on this rifle. So if you are interested in this rifle, go check it out. I did just swap out my light. I did have my little Surefire Scout light on here, and now we do have an Olight Odin on here. This light is not on here to stay. I just put it on here because I moved my Scout light to my Bren. So please, all those Olight haters out there in the comments, just understand that a new light is coming for this. This is kind of just a placeholder for now, because this mount wouldn't fit on my brim because the way it's angled. On my 10.5 inch ARP setup, the reason I chose a 10.5 inch is because I want something that's going to be pretty lightweight and short and easy for me to move around. Where I live at, most of my engagements would more than likely be, close quarters, especially if you're, scavenging for food or anything like that. A lot of times you're going to be in buildings and things like that, so your engagements are not going to be super far out. However, if you want to run a 16-inch rifle, all power more to you. I also have a 16-inch rifle that I could bring as well. It just really depends on the situation. However, today I brought out the 10.5 inch because, to be honest with you, it just looks really good and goes well with the gear. The way I have my 10.5 inch set up is we do have a primary arms prism optic on here. The reason I do choose a prism optic over a red dot for my sit hits the fan situation is because this does not require any type of batteries to work. It works just like a red dot in the sense that I can get really quick target acquisition because there's basically no eye relief on this optic, so it works kind of just like a red dot. Whenever you go up and you look through it, you immediately get a sight picture. Even though it is more like a scope, since it is a 1X, you can use it very, very similar to a LPVO on 1X or a red dot. So you still get that quick target acquisition, but you also get the reliability of a scope. Now, the illumination on it does work with a battery. However, if the illumination goes dark, you can still use this optic. So I think these prism optics are really, really good for a shit hits the fan situation. Next thing is we do have a PEC 15 on here. This is a Somo gear. These run around $250 to $300. They are potted PCBs, which means they have a epoxy over the motherboard so that they will hold zero compared to like some of your really cheap PEC 15 clones on Amazon. These work really well and they're very popular in the budget night vision communities. The reason I have this on my rifle is so I can use that visible laser for close quarters engagements if I need to inside of a building, but mainly for my night vision. You guys see I do have a set of NVGs up here, which we will get to. And we do need a IR illuminator and a IR laser so that we can aim very quickly under night vision and nobody will be able to see us. We're not giving off any type of light or anything for anybody to see our location. So this is just a lot quicker and has worked a lot easier for me when it comes to target acquisition under night vision. So definitely want to run something like that to keep your light presence at night minimal. Next, we do have a flashlight on here. I would say any flashlight would really work as long as you get something that's reputable, that has some longevity. I do have an O-light on here, which is kind of contradictory because I probably wouldn't recommend an O-light. And the reason for that being is not because they're bad lights, but these are very high lumen lights a lot of times, and I wouldn't recommend any high lumen or rechargeable light for your primary service / duty rifle or shit hits the fan rifle. And the reason for that being is because these high lumen flashlights do not last very long. I mean, even your stream lights that are 1,000 lumens only have about an hour of runtime if you really need to use them. I would say the sweet spot for any type of little scout light or anything you're going to put on your rifle is really going to be that 600 to 700 lumen mark. That way you get a very bright light to light up the room, but also you get really good battery life out of a lot of those lower lumen lights. You don't want anything really below like 400 lumens because then you're really getting dim. We do have the Surefire Warden here, the blast mitigator. This is mainly for prone shooting and the shit hits the fan situation. If you are on the ground and you're prone shooting and things like that, you definitely don't want that dust to kick back up in your eyes. When you're in a home and you're shooting indoors and you're shooting at somebody with something like this, one, you're basically got a flamethrower on your gun, so intimidation points +5. But also you're pushing that blast forward towards them, so it will help keep some of that percussion off of you. However, it's still going to be very percussive without a can, but I don't want to sign my life away to the federal government and put my name on a list to own a can. So hopefully they pass that bill where we can get suppressors. Other than that, we do have an aftermarket bolt carrier in here, very high quality bolt carrier group. A nice 2-stage trigger. These are really good for battle rifles or just your shit hits a fan rifle in general, because 2-stage triggers, you get a little bit more creep so you can prepare for your shot and really stay on that wall to take longer range shots. So a nice trigger will definitely help you out. And then you also want a nice sling. So this is a Warbull sling. I use these on basically all my rifles. These slings work very, very well for what they are. This is a multicam one, and you can get these on Amazon for about 20 bucks. Like I said, guys, this gear is really oriented to the budget-minded person, and I've used a lot of different slings, and this is the one sling that I have found that seems to meet most of my requirements and be on par with a lot of the ones that are much more expensive. This is a veteran-run company who sells their stuff on Amazon, so you can get these slings for about 20 bucks, and they have worked well. I've never had one fail on me or anything like that, and I do train my rifle quite a bit. That's pretty much it for the rifle. I don't want to go too in depth on that. First, we're just starting out with the vest. This is just a plate carrier that I got from my local military surplus store. The main thing that I would look for in plate carriers is just that, one, you have double stitching around the seams, and you have reinforced stitching on the molly webbing. The last thing you want is for some of your pouches or something like that to fall out, or possibly your plates falling out when you run. This I got at my local military surplus store for a little bit over $100. If you're on a budget, I definitely recommend going to your local military surplus shops and seeing what you can find in there, because we've found a lot of deals on things in those shops. So if you're on a budget, that's probably the best place to look. But I have even seen Amazon nowadays that are carrying some pretty good quality plate carriers. There's some on there for 120, 130 bucks nowadays that have really good reviews and seem to be pretty reputable. So, there's a lot of options out there for plate carriers nowadays, for quality plate carriers. Mine here, this is tried, true, and tested. I literally used to run with this thing all the time when I was first trying to bulk up my legs and just build some muscle. I used to put 10-pound weight plates in the front and back, and I've ran with this thing pretty consistently, and I've never had any type of issues. What I do have in here is I have a military issued SAPI plate in here that will stop 308. You really want to try to get something that will stop at least up to 308, because most people, especially in America, if they're in these type of situations, are going to be carrying AR-15s and probably AK-47s, the most available rounds and probably the most available assault weapons, CNN, that you can find in America. So I would definitely recommend getting something that can stop up to a 308. However, I'm one of these guys who thinks, some armor is better than no armor. So if you can get soft plates or something like that, or, steel plates, I would just recommend getting whatever armor that you can get. These are SAPI plates, so they're lightweight, but just be mindful if you do go the steel plate route that it does add a lot of weight to your setup, and that weight will definitely come into play when you're trying to train with your carrier and things like that, and also when you're out hiking through the woods and scavenging or doing whatever you're trying to do. Next thing is we do have a walkie here. We have a Cobra walkie. So generally I would hook this up to my headset or something like that, so that way I can hear through my headset. However, we don't have this hooked up today. We're not really going to be using it, but you just want some type of walkie that has a good distance on it. I think these are somewhere between 32 miles and 40 miles, and that's kind of exaggerated because that's kind of on a flat landscape. You're probably not going to be able to communicate with these through trees and things like that. However, I do have a few sets of walkies at my house to hand out to my family members and friends and things like that, just in case we are going out and we're scavenging, so that way we can talk back and forth. I think a communication device is definitely something that you're going to need in a situation like this, because there's no telling if the cell towers will work or you'll even have power to charge your cell phone. So you definitely want something that you can still communicate with anybody who is going to be affiliated with you. Next thing here is we do have my setup down here for my mags. So I did add this this mag carrier here with this pouch. I got this off Amazon, I think for like 30 bucks, and it works well. Has double stitching on the seams, everything I told you to look for. You want to make sure you got that double stitching. This does a really good job. I haven't had any issues with it. I've been running it for quite some time, but I just definitely wanted a bigger pouch up front, so that way I can store everything I need. A lot of people like to store their first aid kits on the back of their plate carrier. However, me, I store a lot of my stuff up front because I want quick access to it myself, so that way I'm not reaching around in a bad situation, because who knows if you're going to have a partner or not. A lot of you guys don't even have friends. You think when the world ends that people are just going to come and help you out when you get shot down? I mean, who knows? It depends on the people that you have around you. But me, I don't want to take that risk, so I have a lot of my stuff here. We do have 3 mags here. I would recommend at least carrying 6 mags in your loadout. The military, I think, carries 7, which they carry 6 on your plate carrier and your battle belt, and then they'll carry 1 in the gun. I recommend at least carrying 6. That's right around 190 rounds, so you'll be carrying right around 200 rounds, and I think that's enough to probably get you through a firefight or any type of tight situation. So if you are stockpiling ammo for a shit hits the fan situation, while more is always better, you can stockpile 1,000 rounds or something like that. Depending on your budget, I would recommend at least keeping 200 to 250 rounds in reserve, just in case a sticky situation happens and you have to defend your life with this setup. So we do have 3 here. We have 2 in the mag pouches on the side here on my battle belt for easy access, and then we would carry 1 in the gun, totaling 190 rounds plus the 1 that's in the chamber. So 191. We do have this pouch here. This is a very, very spacious pouch, which I keep a lot of my just quick access tools in. We do have a TAC flashlight. This is the TAC R700, I believe, by Energizer. This is a very durable light. I've had this for many, many years. I've dropped it, thrown it, things like that. These are very durable little lights. I even used to have this mounted on a shotgun. So, you know, take that as you will, but it still works. It also has a strobe feature, so just in case you need to strobe somebody or pull it out real quick, you definitely want a bright little light. And this does take CR123s, so you can stack those up and they'll take the same batteries as your PEC 15 and a lot of your optics and things like that. We have a lot of first aid in here, so, you know, carrying some energy chews in here just in case. You don't know how long you'll be out of your encampment, your house, or whatever the case may be. So you may need a little bit of extra energy. It could be sugar, your sugar could drop or something like that. So these do have amino acids, electrolytes, and caffeine in them, so you can eat them and you know, hopefully it will help energize you for whatever is to come. Another little small flashlight, little inspection light, just in case you need that for whatever reason your primary goes down. And then we have a whole bunch of first aid in here. So there's probably a lot more than you can see in here. We have bandages, gauze, we have bleed stop. So you definitely want some bleed stop in case somebody gets, you know, really, really hurt and you need to stop the bleeding. We have alcohol pads, sting relief, antiseptics, medicine, painkillers. We have literally everything that we would possibly need in this plate carrier to do our job. We've got extra ear protection, you know, little earbuds, and we also have these little aqua tablets. So you want some way to purify your water. You can do a life straw. I recommend carrying both a life straw and some aqua tablets just in case something happens to one or the other. The life straw will definitely last a lot longer. I think the aqua tablets, it'll probably only work for 2 or 3 bottles of water, so you just need to keep that in mind. But we do have the, you know, the potable aqua tablets, both sets here, so that way we can purify our water just in case the water that we take with us is running dry and we need to fill back up. Last but not least, in here we do have a multi-tool. You definitely want to carry some type of multi-tool on you, that is a screwdriver, pliers, things like that, because I can't tell you how many times, even just being out in the range or camping and stuff like that, that this has become useful to me. You know, you definitely want some type of multi-tool to use in pliers. Maybe your gun jams, you get a really bad jam, stovepipe or something like that, and you need to pry it out. You definitely want something like this. That way that you can utilize it in a situation where you would need it. So that's about it for the pouch here. You know, obviously there's a lot of stuff in here. We don't need to go through every little thing. This is just kind of my, you know, where I keep all my quick access tools, my first aid and things like that. On the side here, we do have a combat knife. So this is my combat knife of choice. I definitely think you should have a knife just in case you get into a close quarters engagement with somebody and you need to utilize a knife. You know, whatever happens, you may run out of ammo, somebody comes at you and they ambush you and you get in a sticky situation. You definitely want to have a knife. So my knife of choice is the Smith & Wesson HRT. This is a carbon steel blade. This is a very, very sharp little knife. My biggest thing is I want a knife that is going to cut and cut very easily, right? You don't want something that's super dull or anything like that. And these little carbon steel blades are super, super sharp. So you can literally cut paper with this thing. It has no issues cutting through things, and you know, that's what I want my knife to do, is cut through things. That's why I went with the Smith & Wesson HRT. They're not super expensive, but they're really, really solid knives. I really do like these knives, these little carbon steel blade knives. Also running some chem lights, just in case we would need them for any reason, you know, mark a location, things like that. I usually will carry a few extra on me as well. I have a whole bag of them in my assault pack at home. So, you know, we have a lot of chem lights. We keep a few out here on the plate carrier just in case we need to crack them, drop them, clear a room, whatever it needs to be, or just, you know, use them for whatever reason. We also have my battle belt here. So this is a Tasmanian Tiger battle belt. Also got this at a military surplus store. Tasmanian Tiger makes a lot of military gear, and they make very, very good quality military gear. This is a very, very good quality belt, good quality mag carriers here. So these are Tasmanian Tigers as well. You want to make sure your mag carriers, you don't get something that is super, super flimsy, because when you're taking your mags in and out, you need something that mag is just going to sit right back down into. I'm sure you guys, if you ever bought like some from Amazon or something like that, know exactly what I'm talking about. You definitely want some real stiff mag carriers for your mags, and we're just running P mags for the most part because P mags work, they're cheap, and probably one of the best options on the market as far as it goes with polymer mags. Over here we have my holster. This is a Tacticon ornament holster. This is a leg drop holster. I did take off the leg part because it just didn't really fit my leg very well. Didn't like the way it felt, and I just found myself not really using it. So we do have this holster here with my SIG P365 fuse in here. I would recommend whatever gun that you decide you want to carry on your shit hits the fans loadout, it needs to be at least a 4-inch barrel. You want a 4 to 5-inch barrel. I would recommend carrying a full-size handgun, because if you do have to shoot at some distance, remember, this is no longer self-defense. This is more of a combative scenario. You know, you may have to be shooting at 25 yards with a handgun if you run out of ammo in your primary and you're taking, you know, rounds, and you really need to engage that target. So I would definitely recommend having something that's 4 or 5 inches. That way it's capable of reaching out if it absolutely has to. Plus you're getting that extra velocity in the barrel. That's it for the battle belt. Also here we do have a shamog. I think that's how you say it, a shamog. It's kind of just a scarf to go over your neck. The main reason I would recommend getting one of these or something to cover your face is because there's no telling what situation you end up in. You could go into a building, you know, there could be dust flying everywhere if there's bullets flying, or if you're shooting on the ground, or, you know, in an environment where there's a lot of dust, then you want to make sure that you can protect your face. Or maybe there's debris flying. In a civil unrest situation, there's rioting, you know, maybe there's tear gas, pepper spray, things like that. While you're not going to be able to completely negate the effects of those things, you can definitely, you know, minimize the effects by having something pretty thick to cover up your face, your nose, and things like that from any type of debris, dust, or anything like that. I would definitely recommend at least having one on your kit so that you can run it and you can wrap it around your face. Last but not least here, we'll definitely go over the helmets. So the helmet setup, which I know is what a lot of you are probably looking at when we talk about a budget helmet setup, and you see I have a full set of NVGs up here. So these are budget oriented, and we're going to do a video on these. So if you're interested, you're on a budget, you want some night vision that works very, very well, I would say this is probably top of the line as it relates to digital night vision. Please stay tuned because we're going to do a video on these. But my helmet setup here is a simple bump helmet. So it's just a bump helmet with a multicam cover over it. We do have a tourniquet out the back here. That tourniquet, I would definitely recommend having a tourniquet on your kit somewhere, 1 or 2 of them, just in case something happens and you have to, you know, cut off blood flow to a limb to save your life. You know, the probability of that happening to you if you're in a combat scenario is likely if you get into a gunfight. So you definitely want to make sure that you have something to save your life in those type of situations. So mine's on the back of my helmet, so I can literally just reach up here and grab it off if I need it and do what I need with it. Another thing that we have here is the battery pack for my night vision. So if you are going to be running some type of night vision goggles or anything like that, you do want to have a battery pack for them. So the night vision I have here are the PVS 69s by Von Shear Farms. These are a set of dual tube night vision goggles that work very, very well. The way that these work is they use PVS 14, I believe, lenses on the back here. And in these tubes, you have FPV drone cameras. So they're cameras from a certain FPV drone, which is a first-person view drone, that they put into these that are made to basically have a night mode in them, and they work very, very well. With just a little bit of ambient light at night, if the moon's out, you can literally see everything without IR light. One of the biggest downfalls to digital night vision is the fact that a lot of them you have to run with some bright IR light or they do not work. These you do not absolutely need IR light. However, in a really dark situation, dark room, it's really dark outside, there's no ambient light, you're definitely going to want something like an IR light to guide you. The biggest pro to these over everything else is the fact that they work really well without IR, and they also have basically no latency. So a lot of the issues with some of the digital night vision is that they have a lot of latency on them, right? When you go side to side, there's definitely a blur effect there that can slow you down substantially if you're trying to get away from somebody or you're trying to move quickly under night vision. These are probably the closest thing to one-to-one that I have used. I've used the NVG 10s as well, and they definitely have a lot more latency and a lot less FOV than these do. Having dual tubes really helps as well, and I believe you can build these for under $500. So you can actually 3D print and build these, and they work phenomenally for what they are, especially for the price. Or you can buy them straight for Von Shear Farms. This pair was made by Von Shear Farms themselves. We also have these attached to a Wilcox mount, And the way that these work is they're attached to a battery bank on the back of my helmet. So as long as you have a Mophie or some type of battery bank, you can plug these in and these will last hours. They will last hours. I don't think these have ever died on me since I've had them, and I've done a lot of night hiking and stuff like that with them. What I think that I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna buy a solar powered battery bank. That way I can stick one of those big fat solar powered battery banks on the back. While I'm hiking during the day, it will charge up, and then at night we can use it and we'll always have some reserve left in the battery. That way we don't have to worry about charging or anything like that, or having a source of power for our night vision goggles. Also, they just fucking look cool, right? So, you know, that's a plus. On the side here, we do have a little Surefire Scout clone IR light. These are about 70 bucks on Amazon, but they work really, really well. You know, you definitely at night, you're hiking at night through the woods, you don't want to be using a white light. One, because people are going to see you, you're going to draw attention to yourself, but also because, as I stated earlier, white lights, especially the firearm ones, don't have significant battery life. So when you're running through with a white light, it's going to be very easy to run through multiple sets of batteries if you're hiking, you know, a full night to get somewhere. And with IR lights, the IR lights generally, the battery life's a lot better because you're not shining a bright white light out there. You know, there's not a lot of heat, you know, generated from an IR light. So they generally have a lot better battery life, and you definitely don't want to, like I said, be giving yourself away. So with the IR light, nobody can see it unless they have night vision, and it definitely would keep your white light presence down. But also, you'll get a lot more use at night out of a setup like this, other than just going with your bare eyes and a white light, because battery life is going to tank, and you'll go through multiple sets of batteries in a night if you're operating like that. So you definitely want something like this, because this white light presence down and your battery life is going to be significantly better. Probably a lot better off having a setup like this for night vision. Last but not least here, I would definitely say, you know, you want some sort of air pro built into your helmet, so that way that you can you know, protect your ears from blowing them out in a sticky situation. You can get these like quick access, I don't even know what these are called, but they're basically for the ear muffs. You pull them down, you put them on your ears, and then you just pop them in, and then you're sealed up, ready to go with your helmet on. So that way when you have to take quick shots, you can pull them down, pop them in, and then you're ready to go. These are Peltor range guards. These work pretty well for, you know, just saving your ears. I mean, I guess as good as any other mitts would work. I mean, you could use walkers, you could really use anything for this, as long as you're protecting your ears. That's the main thing. If you are running a walkie though, you definitely want something that you can plug into, which you could do that with walkers or anything else. So, you know, just keep that in mind. The only thing I would say with the helmet is that you definitely want to get something that you have some good retention in, because, you know, the size may vary and your head may be a weird shaped head, and you need something that's going to tie down. So you can see my helmet here has this adjustable kind of knob on the back. I would definitely recommend looking for a bump helmet or whatever type of helmet you want to get that has a good adjustment on it. This has leather straps on it, and also you know, this adjustment retention knob here, and that helps a lot to keep it secured to your head, especially if you're going to wear night vision or something on it. This is going to add a lot of front heavy weight to your helmet, and you definitely want to make sure that you can fit this tight to your head so it's not moving around and messing up your vision under night vision. So that kind of concludes all my gear setup. The only little additional things I would add that I would say are probably important for you to put into your gear setup that, you know, you probably wouldn't think about otherwise is, one, a mechanical watch. All right, I love mechanical watches. This is my go-to mechanical watch. I wear it all the time. But in the situation where we don't have phones, you know, you don't have clocks or anything like that, we don't know what the situation would be, you want something that's going to be able to tell time. So if you're doing something, you know, you tell your family, you know, we're going to go out and scavenge for some food, you know, we'll be back in 3 hours. If we're not back, then, you know, someone needs to come looking for us or whatever the case may be. You want to have something to be able to tell time. Mechanical watches work in a way where, as long as they're shook up and you're moving with them on, they will tick. So they don't run off of batteries or anything like that, so you can time things perfectly. You can time engagements, things like that, and overall I think it's very important to have some sort of way to count minutes and count hours. Even if it's not completely accurate, at least you can still count the time frame between minutes, hours, and things like that for any type of situation like that. So I definitely think it's important to include a mechanical watch, which is something that a lot of people don't talk about. Definitely have a compass somewhere on you. This is really just a little cheap paracord bracelet that I keep on my plate carrier with a compass on it. That way, if I go in one direction, I know exactly what direction to walk back in to get to where I'm at. So you definitely want to have some sort of compass or direction device, I guess, so that way you know exactly which way you're going on your plate carrier. All right, guys. So now we're gonna do some training with the gear on. So the rest of the video is gonna be strictly me training with my gear on, and maybe talking a little bit here and there about, you know, the challenges of training with your gear versus just training with your normal clothes on with an AR or anything like that. So we're gonna run some drills out here. We're gonna take some shots at the target and at the gong, and yeah, we're just gonna have fun with it. But you know, this is something we need to do. You need to train regularly with your gear on, because the weight difference, the way your plate carrier sits, shouldering the rifle, everything becomes a little bit different when you have all this gear on. You know, moving your head around, things like that, you just got to get used to it. That way, in the situation where we would ever have to use this gear, you will be effective.
Shooter ready. Stand by. Beep.
One, two, three, four, five, maybe, and then we hit the gong a few times. Let's keep running it.
Shooter ready. Stand by. Beep.
Definitely not as fast, like just being in the carrier and everything. Like, it definitely slows you down a little bit, you know. And that's one of the biggest things about making sure you're training inside of your gear. I mean, it's not easy when you get out here and you're starting to sweat and you got all this weight on you and you're going up to shoulder the rifle, and you see how this has a, you know, clip here on your shoulder. That's going to definitely, you know, change the way that you shoulder your rifle, because it's definitely spacing you away from your rifle a little bit, and it's going to change your technique on the way that you shoulder your rifle whenever you're inside your plate carrier. I place one here, place one here. Those are my two shots from the AR. I probably completely pulled my 9mm shot. Yeah, it looks like, yeah, that was my 9mm shot right there. Over here, it's like we placed a new one here, and I don't see another one that I pulled. Is that a bullet hole right there? Jeez, it came out right here. Definitely different. I mean, different coming out here and trying to train with your gear on. I mean, it's not fun, it's uncomfortable, but this is something you have to do to make sure that you can be effective with your gear on. Your skills with your gear off versus your skills with your gear on are going to be completely different.
Shooter ready. Stand by. Beep.
I didn't rack the gun that time, that's my fault. All right, that looks weird. What do you think that's from, the 9mm? This is new, right?
5.56, yeah.
Yep, that's new. Oh, did I pull one right there?
That's what, yep.
Yep, okay. Here we pulled one off the shoulder, but it looks like we got a few here, there. Maybe one right there. It looks like shrapnel though. Go ahead.
Shooter ready. Stand by. Beep.
Pulled that one off left just a little bit. Here looks like one of these two, right?
No.
Definitely got a 9mm there. And I was aiming for the head.
Did you get one below it? That
Huh?
one? Yeah.
Yep. I think that was there before. And it looks like we might added one here too. I think that one of these, that one we added. That was a headshot with the 5.56.
Yeah.
It just shoots a little bit low because height over bore, so.
Shooter ready. Stand by. Beep.
Damn, I really need to adjust the sight because it shoots a little bit low. Yeah, we got a new one right there. Maybe a new one right here. Yeah, we added one here.
Then a one above.
One right there. And
like
then 9mm, it looks like we were kind of hitting this area.
Shooter ready. Stand by. Beep.
Miscounted. Looks like we got one here. Took a 9mm to the shoulder. 5.56. It looks like we put another one here in that little group. Looks like we pulled one down low. It's definitely shooting low, bro. Definitely shooting low. We did get one head here. I did aim a way higher with this one. Okay. I aimed like here instead of here, and that's where it ended up. So it's definitely a height over bore thing. And then
shooter ready. Stand by. Beep.
Looks like I put one here. Yeah, I mean that's new. Yeah, 9mm. I'm looking for 5.56. We got a few hits there. Spread these out a little bit. I was kind of just rapid firing, so we pulled a few. I think that one was already there, right? Yeah, but we pulled these two. We put a few more here. Looks like we put a few more here in the center. Then the 9mm looks like one of these. So look, guys. Overall, I think I did pretty poorly out here with gear on. I think that just shows that I need more practice when it comes to practicing with gear on. It definitely weighs you down a lot. It gets tiring on your shoulders. It makes you a lot hotter, a lot sweatier. I mean, overall, I'm just aggravated right now. You guys can't tell, I'm just aggravated. I wanted to fucking sling my rifle in the dirt because, you know, turning out here with gear on, it's not fun. It definitely takes a lot of the fun out of it because you're constantly trying to maneuver your stuff and, you know, it's weighing you down. I would say one of the biggest things about preparing for a shit hits the fan situation is getting in physically good shape, right? Like if your rifle's heavy, you probably need to go to the gym and lift more weights. Get stronger. If your gear feels heavy, you probably need to go to the gym and lift more weights. A lot of it's going to come into your physical training when it comes to training with gear on. I mean, obviously it's going to be your fundamentals, right? Like when we're talking about like, shouldering the rifle with your plate carrier on, that's something you have to train with. When we talk about like your ear pro. So when it comes to like shouldering your rifle, or just, you know, with your ear protection on, trying to shoulder it with your ear protection on, things like that. Those little small things are definitely the fundamentals you have to train, but overall, your physical training really comes into play with this scenario. Your shoulders are gonna tire out, your legs are gonna tire out quicker, you're gonna become more out of breath faster. So I would say the biggest thing to prepare for training with your gear on is take your plate carrier out and maybe just do a mile jog. Or put some weight plates in and go out and jog. That way that you get used to it, you build up your shoulders a little bit more, you build up your legs a little bit more, because overall, that's what's really gonna come into play is a lot of your cardio. Being in all this gear, getting hotter, faster, you know, your breathing's gonna kick in a lot quicker, like you're gonna start breathing heavier a lot sooner, you know, things like that. Training those little aspects of it are gonna make you a lot better with gear on, because as you guys can tell, I mean, I train out here a lot, and usually I can shoot pretty well, but with the gear on, it's just a completely different atmosphere, because you got a helmet on, your head's a lot, you know, heavier when you're bobbing your head up and down, you know, your body's a lot heavier because you got your gear on and everything else. So when you're selecting your gear, it's important to keep it lightweight, which is why I picked the 10.5 inch over a 16 inch. And just, you know, overall, just your physical fitness is going to come into play a lot. Also, your spirituality, right? If we're talking about a shit hits the fan situation, you know, a lot of times, a lot of people in a long-term shit hits the fan situation are going to die of illness, disease, things like that. For instance, you know, I'm diabetic. I've been a diabetic since I was 14 years old, and I heavily rely on insulin. So in the situation where we can't get medicine, medication, things like that, you know, it's definitely going to be a lot stickier for me than it would be for somebody who's in, you know, really, really good health and doesn't have any outlying health diseases or anything like that. So for me, a big part of me getting in shape and being in the best physical condition I can be in was mostly because when I think about situations like that, situations where I can't get insulin, I'm gonna have to rely on heavily on exercise and diet to keep my sugar under control. So when we think about things like that, you know, those are really things you have to take into consideration. Your physical health really comes into play when we're talking about training with gear and just training for a shit hits the fan situation in general. If you're fat, out of shape, or you have underlying health problems that you have not taken care of, those are really going to kick in when you don't have modern day medicine, or you know, you don't have time to get into shape, right? So now is the time. If you're not in good shape, I recommend going to the gym, getting in good shape, training with your gear on, running with your gear on, things like that, because that's going to make you a lot faster in these type of situations. Because obviously I'm super rusty, not fast at all, but it's just something I've got to work on and consistently train towards. So with that being said, guys, that's pretty much it for the video today. Just really wanted to show off my Shit Hits the Fan gear and then train with it a little bit. I will be doing some more training out here with it. I think I want to bring my Brin out here, and I may actually switch all my stuff over to that rifle for my Shit Hits the Fan loadout, just because it's a little bit shorter, it's a little bit lighter, it has that polymer lower on it, so that might be something that I switch out to. Overall, guys, that's kind of it for the video today. I'm sorry if it kind of sucked. It was kind of long, but you know, I definitely want to get a video out there of just my gear and give you guys some insight to, you know, some things to look at if you haven't already set up your, you know, Shit Hits the Fan loadout. It's definitely something that I recommend everybody have, just in case you get put into one of these situations where you're in a city and people are rioting, looting, things like that, and they may come to your home. You may be living in the city, or you may be in a business somewhere and you may have to defend it out there, depending on what the situation may be with the political environment and everything like that. I think there's crazy people on both sides, both the left and the right, and there's no telling, you know, what crossfire you may get caught into. So with that being said, guys, train with your gear, train your physical ability, train your spiritual ability, and you know, just try to become as dangerous as possible, so in the event something bad happens in your town, you are prepared to defend your family and hopefully, you know, elongate the amount of time that you guys have when it comes to a situation like that. So without further ado, guys, I appreciate everybody for watching. Please subscribe for more content, and please keep a lookout for a video, night vision shooting video on our PBS 69s that we did have out here. Please keep a lookout for that, and I'll see you guys in the next video. And like, subscribe, put in the comments below on what you think of my loadout and any, you know, advice or, you know, anything that you guys may have. Maybe you want to put in the comments on what you guys are carrying for your loadout. So with that being said, guys, I will see you in the next one, and peace.